Welcome to the Leslie Monday Podcast, a show for lovers of all things science fiction in books, TV, and movies. Each week, we'll review something new or dive into an old favorite. So come join me. I'm Leslie, and it's Monday. And welcome to the Leslie Monday Podcast. I'm Leslie, and today we're going to be talking about the Expanse Season 5, Episode 2, Churn. Now, before we jump right into the episode, I just wanted to welcome you if you're a new listener. Thank you for joining us here, and invite all of you, new and old listeners alike, to be part of the conversation and leave me your comments or thoughts on these episodes. Ask me your questions. We'll definitely do a Q&A type episode, because I do want this to be more of a conversation, again, and not just me talking into the vast abyss. So let me know your thoughts, and let's have more of a conversation and back and forth about these episodes. Okay, so I'm going to break this up by character, not necessarily going in the order of everything that happened in the episode. I think it's easier, especially for this season, to lump things together by what's going on with each character versus following the progression of the episode. And I am going to save the Alex, Bobby, sort of Avasarala part more for the end of this episode and go ahead and give you a book spoiler warning that there are a couple things I wanted to point out that are from the books, and not knowing what's going to happen the rest of the season and what parts of books 6, 7, 8, or 9 they're going to bring into season 6, that there's a couple of things I just wanted to point them out. They're a little book spoilers, so if you haven't read the book, maybe you just want to skip that part, but it'll be closer to the end, and I'll definitely give you another heads up when I'm about to mention those. Okay, so let's talk about Drummer. So right off the bat, it looks like she is definitely getting Michio Pa's storylines going forward. And again, if you didn't read the books, Michio Pa was introduced in book 3, and a lot of her story arcs for book 3 were given to Kamina, and some of Bull's story arcs were also given to Kamina in that last half of season 3. And like I said, I only noticed that these were the characters because of the subtitles in the episodes. Like, I saw that it said Bull, and when he was talking, I saw that it said Michio when she was talking on the ship there with Kamina. And again, I'm still sort of happy-sad about it, because Drummer herself gets some interesting storylines in the later books that I kind of hoped they might somehow bring in for season 5 and 6, kind of knowing that they're going to wrap up. Maybe they would take some pieces of that and give to her somehow. I understand that they can't fit everything in, obviously, especially with like 7, 8, and 9, and I believe there's another book coming out this year that they can't put everything into it. I get that. But it does kind of make me sad that we don't get Michio on her own. You know what I mean? We don't get to see her as a character on her own. Instead, we kind of get her as a background character. And it just makes me wonder, if they hadn't been canceled in season 3, if we would get those characters, or if we would still be in the same situation, and maybe for television they didn't want to bring in so many different characters. But I feel like nowadays the viewers can really handle it. I think before there was really something about, these are your main set, and we only focus on your main set, whether that's 4 or 5 characters, whoever they may be, and we never really deviate from them anymore. But even, like, again, I'll bring up Game of Thrones, and there's so many characters, and there's even more characters in the books versus the show that you see, that I think the viewers today can really handle when you bring in more characters and more characters. The issue, I think, that studios face is the time, and how much time you can give to each character on the show. You know what I mean? If you have 12 main characters, how do you evenly and fairly break up the time for their storylines and also for the actors themselves? Because obviously this is their career, and the more face time that they get, they can grow a following. People can see how well they can act, or in others' opinions, how terribly they can act. It depends. But, there's always that balance between the story and then the studio and the business side of getting things done. But anyway, just to get back to Drummer, I do like that she's kind of taking Michio's I'm the Pirate Queen storyline and going from there. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses throughout the season. Okay, so moving on to Amos. We get a lot of his backstory this episode. And if you've read The Churn, I believe it's called The Churn and not just Churn. If not, please correct me. But that's a novella, one of the shorter stories that goes more into depth in about his backstory. And we get to see a lot of that in this episode. I wasn't sure at first if that woman and boy that he kept seeing was real or not, because they're so well integrated. I thought, oh, well, that could be like real and he's just remembering himself and seeing himself in them. Or it could be a flashback. And of course, we see that it is a flashback when he's sitting at the dock or at the docks and he's remembering that one conversation that he had with Lydia, who's the woman who passed away, that he's going to take care of her estate. We see that it is a flashback. And I thought they cast the boy to play him really well. I actually went to IMDb to look it up because I know that the actor of Amos, Wes Chatham, does have a couple of sons. I just didn't know how old they were. I wasn't sure if they were old enough to be cast, as something to kind of play a younger version of their dad or not. But I think they are definitely too young. But it said the boy who was cast was Cole Pollock, and I thought they did such a great job. He just has such similar features to Amos. He's got that same kind of shaped head, and he just looked really good. That was just a really great casting job, because that is one thing that The Expanse has done very well, even when they were back on Sci-Fi, is that they cast their characters very well. And whether or not you agree with, does the character look exactly how I envisioned them when I read the book, you do have to admit that they stuck to their guns. They did a very good job of saying, no, we're not just going to take every blue-eyed, blonde-haired actress that comes in and put them in the background for all these characters who are very obviously people of color, and they cast a lot of them correctly. And so applause for that. But again, this is one of those, they did a really good job picking out this kid. And they also did a really good job casting Philip for Naomi and Marco. If I was going to think that those two actors had a kid, he is exactly what I think that kid would look like. So just a really good job again for casting. So overall, we get some really nice character development and some really good emotional development from Amos in this episode. And even when he goes to see Eric can tell that he's different and he has changed, that there's something has happened to him and he's grown. And now I assume that the person that he messaged Avasarala about that he's going to go see is Melba. That is my assumption. And we can see that he's starting to try and figure out how to pay that forward, especially when he remembered that conversation with Lydia and they were talking about, I'm not a righteous or good person, but maybe we can pretend that I'm good and wise. And they're just trying to get ahead and trying to do the right thing. And we've seen that storyline with Amos throughout these seasons, where he really needed somebody to help him figure out right from wrong. And there were different people along the way helping him. And especially through the Caliban's War story arc, we see him kind of starting to figure things out a little bit, how to figure it out on his own 2 feet. Especially with his friendship with Prax, when he begins seeing a lot of himself in Prax and the sort of dark path that Prax was going down, and Amos realizing that he doesn't want him to go down that same path that he did, and trying to direct him maybe a little, go this way, not that way. And so him being there, and I believe he's going to see Melba, that he's going to try and help her. So I think that's really good development for his character. I like seeing the storyline. Of course, again, having read book 5, I'm still waiting for other events to take place that I'm looking forward to. But I do enjoy getting to see their backstories. And it's interesting to me that I think Baltimore kind of looked, as they portrayed it here, a little better than when we saw Bobby went down and she was looking for the ocean when she first visited Earth in season 2. And that looked a lot more, I guess it was because it was more at the bottom of New York, right? Because the city is built up and up and up and up, and she was all the way sort of at the bottom level of the people who were, I assume they were either on basic or undocumented and didn't even have assistance at all. Whereas Baltimore, it did look a little rough and a little poor, but at least there were trees and stuff, which makes me happy. I'm not a concrete dweller. I need at least some green space. So Baltimore didn't look quite as terrible. And I do like that when he was sitting there on that dock, he was watching the shuttle go up, and that conversation that he and Eric had, remember when we were just trash sitting there watching it go up and wishing that we could go up with it. So it was a nice round out sort of end cap to the episode. Okay, so on to the Holden and Fred on Tycho storyline. I just have to say, poor Fred, because I feel like he had this dream when he finally decided to live again, right? In episode 1, he tells Holden that his life didn't really begin until he decided to build the station and build something for the belt. And the station, Tycho, seems to be like a rebellious teenager that's kind of just bucking their parent at any point that they possibly can, because poor Fred has more security breaches. He's realizing he doesn't have total control of the station again, because we've already seen that happen, and here it is again. And I just kind of feel bad for him that you have this dream of something and this vision in your mind, and you desperately try and share it with other people to get them on board and to share that same dream with you. And it just seems like as many people as he can get to share that dream with him, right? Like Drummer at that point, when we first see them back in seasons 1 and 2 and 3, right? She kind of shares that dream. She's the head of security, and even she kind of drifts away from it. But when you have that dream and you're trying to build something, you're trying to do something, and as many people believe in it as equally hate it. And I just feel bad for him because the station, again, there's security breaches. Of course, they took Monica because she knows something about the proto-molecule. And again, poor Holden, he's caught back up in the proto-molecule. He cannot seem to get away from this at all. It chases him down everywhere he goes. And it's so funny when you think about in season 3, and he was going with Proto Miller to the nucleus inside the ring space, and Proto Miller was like, oh, look, all this stuff happens, and there you are, right at the center of it. Like, that it's not as random as he thinks it is, but that makes you question, what is the length of the agency of the protomolecule? Can it really affect events to that extent, or is it just trying to tell him things and butter him up to make him think that he's more important and always at the center of things? But again, poor Holden, he's caught back up in the protomolecule because as soon as Monica says that she knows something, she knows he can't let it go. He has to track this down, right? This is his white whale. He has to know what's going on. He has to try and save the world. He really is a Don Quixote, the knight tilting at windmills. It's a really, really good comparison, especially throughout season 1. Really, really kind of hitting home that comparison that he's tilting at windmills. But of course, they do find Monica alive, which is great, and they rescue her. It will be interesting to hear what she has to say, maybe next episode, about what's going on with the proto-molecule and who may be behind it. Okay, so now on to the Alex, Bobby, Avasarala storyline. Those three, they are on the other end of that mystery, which is that what's going on. They're on that black market conspiracy end of it, and I feel like Drummer's really on the other side of it with the chasing down what happened to Ashford and Marco Inaros. And again, that's something that I think this show does really, really well, is you have this mystery of something that's going on, and you have these different perspectives on it. So we have Drummer the Belter side. We have Avasarala on Luna chasing down the Earth side. We have Alex and Bobby looking into the Mars side. And everybody's all pulling on that same thread, dancing around that same mystery. And then, of course, it all comes together. It all comes to a head. But I think this show does that really, really well. And it gives you, the viewer, just enough so that you don't necessarily know what's going on, but it gives you enough pieces of the puzzle that as viewers, we're sitting here going, okay, is this piece? Does it go to this piece? Maybe it's this person. Try and fit these together. Maybe it'll turn out to be this person. Maybe it'll be somebody we haven't seen yet. But I really enjoy that. Of course, having already seen, again, have read the book. I don't know how many times I'll say that, but having read the book, I already know what happens. So if you've already read the books and you kind of know what happens, do you ever feel like maybe you shouldn't have read the book so that you can be, not in the know? Or do you like being in the know and watching everybody else's reactions? Because I'm kind of the opinion I like to read the books, and it's just because I enjoy reading them. And normally, again, like with this show, the books were already out far enough in advance that I could just go straight through them, and inhale them to read them up. But do you feel like you want to see the show first and then read the book and get more backstory, more in-depth things that they can't really do with the visual medium, in a show or in a movie? Or do you like to go flip-flop and do the book first and then jump to the movie? I'm kind of either or, but if there are books, I do tend to like to try and read the book first. But let me know what you think. Okay, so really quick book spoilers. Like, if you don't want to hear this, jump forward, I don't know, a few seconds. Like 30, 40 seconds or something. Jump forward. Book spoilers. Okay, are you still here? It's your own fault if you are. Book spoilers. Did anybody else really smile or grin with delight when you saw the image? When Admiral Salvatore is giving his speech about the symmetric and asymmetric choke points, and the image comes up on the hologram when he's giving his speech about how a small force inside the ring space could hold that space and be a choke point for everybody else on the outside of the rings, other sides of the rings, and the little lines that went from Medina Station to all the different rings. And you just kind of got excited thinking about, I believe it's book 7, Persepolis Rising. And I was just like, oh, look at that. It makes me happy. Okay, so book spoilers are over. They're over. I'm not going to say anything else. I just wanted to say that one thing because it just made me happy to see something from the later books that, because they're wrapping up with season 6 and we don't know how much they're going to bring in, I saw something from one of the future books and it made me happy. Okay, so I just wanted to take a second and talk about the Mars imagery this season because I have really loved it. It's so beautiful, and the scenes, the backgrounds, the VFX, they've gotten so much better at doing those, but something about seeing it is so moving to me, personally, at least, seeing a living, breathing, working colony on Mars, because the idea of Mars and of us one day having a colony there, like in reality and not just in TV shows, that still fascinates me. That's still a dream that I don't want to see us give up on as a people. And seeing it in science fiction, seeing it here, seeing it in the Netflix series Mars, it just makes me feel nostalgic for something that hasn't even happened yet, Just that feeling of, this thing hasn't taken place yet, but I've dreamed about it so much and it fascinates me so much that I'm nostalgic for it and it hasn't even taken place. And maybe I'm crazy, but it's the same with Avasarala on Level City on Luna. And I'm just kind of saddened to think that as a people, we may have given up on those dreams and those goals. Because I'm definitely part of that shuttle generation, and the space shuttle was going up from the 80s to like 2010, 2011. And it was just kind of a common thing that we thought, of course we're going to build space stations, and of course we're going to build a colony on the moon. Like, there's no question about it. Of course we're going to be doing these things. And as we've seen, that really hasn't happened. And it just kind of makes me sad to think that maybe as a people, and I don't just mean the USA, I mean the humanity as a whole, that maybe we've kind of given up on those dreams. But that's it just seems like NASA and other government-funded space exploration things have become so bogged down in politics and the government funding that they don't have any agency, or as much as they used to really dream and set lofty goals, versus they really have to come down to that bottom line. And that's something that does fascinate me about Elon Musk and that SpaceX program that he has, because I mean, he might underestimate how long it's actually going to take to build a Mars colony, but he's still dreaming about it and still wanting to do it and still taking action to get there. And just look at the Crew 1 launch, and we launched the Dragon, and we launched from the USA for the first time in how many years? And all of that just really fascinates me. And again, to see a living, breathing Mars colony portrayed in science fiction so well, it really does hit home to me. I'm so fascinated. That's something that I really want to do. I'm probably one of those insane people that I might not have the qualifications necessarily. I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but if they put out a call for people to go, I would be there, and I would be one of the ones to go and want to do it. Call me crazy. So overall, I think this was another solid episode for this season, and I'm looking forward to more. But what comes next after Season 5 of The Expanse? Well, I'd like your help in deciding that. So if you have any suggestions for me, please let me know. Leave them in comments, email me at thelesliemondaypodcast@gmail.com. I want to know, and I want to create a list or a database of all of your suggestions. And we will use that going forward. Of course, if you don't give me any suggestions, whatever comes next will be whatever I happen to pick. So, do you want to go backwards and check out some classic sci-fi and talk about it? Do you want to chase whatever the latest and greatest, newest thing is on Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon? Let me know, and we will figure out where we're going from here. So as always, all of my social media links can be found on my website, lalunsford.com. You can always email me at thelesliemondaypodcast@gmail.com. And please do. I want to hear from you. I want to know your thoughts. I want to hear your questions and have a conversation and answer them. Let me know. So I just want to thank you for listening and invite you to join us next time for episode 3 of Season 5 of The Expanse. Until then, have a great one.